What's up? Welcome to the channel. I want to talk about Andor, and I want to do this video, and I think I have just one more video I want to do on Andor because I really am not. I'm just like, that show has just put like a bad taste in my mouth about what Tony Gilroy and Kathleen Kennedy and whoever was involved else in this making this show think that Star Wars is. And I think that this show was trying to be like the first Star Wars drama because obviously it had very little action. It was not the spy action thriller that they said that it would be. At the end of the day, what this was, it was a domestic political drama, but it was a really bad one at that. But I'm here to talk to you, and I want to do another video where I do like a rewrite of it. But in this video, I want to do one where I talk about just the movie genres. This channel is going to evolve into just a movie channel for movie fans and for Star Wars fans, with a big emphasis on Star Wars on this channel. So I want to talk about genre because I'm a screenwriter. I went to school. I got my degree for screenwriting, and I don't have any experience in the industry. It's really hard to get a job in the industry, but I've written a lot and I've done a lot on the side for fun, and I have a lot to share here with you, including Star Wars fan stories that I want to post here as videos, and I present the script, the story to you guys. I have a lot of big Star Wars stories that I want to put here, and it's going to be over time as the channel grows, as I get a little bit more people watching. So what I want to present here is just movie genres. And movie genres, when you, as a writer or even as an audience member, when you're presenting a movie or a story idea as a writer, and you're like, what is this movie about? And then, or what is this movie like? What's the style? What genre is it? Let's say the writer wants to write an action movie, an action genre. He's gonna have to have action in the script. That's for sure. And quality is not only singled out for dramas or for movies based on real life or true stories. Quality can be in comedies. Quality can be in kids movies, in family movies. Quality can be in slapstick comedy movies. Comedy can be in horror movies. Comedy can be in like even gory horror movies. Even very few gory horror movies are good. I mean, on the top of my mind, I can't think of it because I don't really watch a lot of those kind of movies. But I'm sure there's one good, decent, pretty well written gory movie out there, and if you know one, put it in the comments and I'll check it out. But there's good action written movies. Some action movies, some great action movies are better than a lot of dramas put together. Some great adventure movies, some great written fantasy movies, and sci-fi movies as well. For the action dramas, sometimes action develops character, and it also shows character through conflict or through pressure. If the pressure is hard on the character to act on a villain or an antagonist thing that's going on in the story, and then the protagonist needs to come to step up, then if he steps up during that pressure, during that conflict, it's going to show his true character. But he has to act it out. He has to act in that moment, and good action movies will do that with this character, with the protagonist, through action, through to fighting the bad guys, or to doing something to destroy a building or something where the bad guys are at. And it's going to be all action, but it's going to show character. It's going to show character. Good movies like Die Hard, Predator, all the movies like that do that. They do that well with the action, with these characters. That's why those are some of the best action movies. Terminator 2. These are great action movies because they have the characters show their character through action. And so, and there are defenders that come up to you and say, you know what, you just want action. You're not sophisticated enough. Like, it's just really ridiculous and stupid and immature and just nonsense. And you're just telling me I'm a Disney shill, and my Disney lord is telling me to disapprove your facts and your points because we don't want our show to look bad, even though it's bad. And I'm just gonna spew some nonsense at you. It's either that or just some fan that doesn't like Star Wars. It's either that or just a regular person. He doesn't work for Disney, but they're not a Star Wars fan. They don't appreciate Star Wars. They don't understand Star Wars, and they just throw all this nonsense out about defending Andor. That's basically it. And Star Wars is an action adventure fantasy genre. It is not a sci-fi. It is not a comedy. It is not a drama. It's not a horror or anything like that. It's not a true to life story or anything like that. And it's primarily an action adventure fantasy genre franchise. The action obviously comes from all the action. It's called Star Wars. The conflict with the Empire, the Rebellion, the Republic, the Separatists, the Sith, the Jedi. These are all, a lot of these characters are warriors, soldiers. There's going to be a lot of action in there. There's going to be a lot of conflict, a lot of fighting, battles. All of that is exciting. It's fun to watch. Star Wars harkens back to Flash Gordon, all of those serials, all of those swashbuckling movies from the past, from all those action B movies, silent movies, 1930s, 40s B movies from the past. Star Wars is not this. It's not trying to be this pretentious type of thing that's trying to think that it's better than anything else. It's just fun to watch, and it was pulled off in such a excellent way that the movies naturally became excellent. They're great. They became amazing. They became great. They became iconic. So the action is the fun part about Star Wars. It's just integral in its genetics of the way that it's made. The fantasy part is part of it is the rules of Star Wars, what George Lucas created for the rules of Star Wars. Now, anybody else that comes after George Lucas, in my opinion, should not change the rules, but they should add to the rules that at least would make sense in that universe. New rules that would make sense in that universe, new ideas that would make sense in that universe that is already established by George Lucas. But that's the fantasy element, and the fantasy element is that it's not science fiction. We're not worried about how the ships work. We're not worried even too much about how the lightsabers work, how the blaster guns work. We're not worried about how any of the technology works in these stories. We're worried about the story, the characters, and that's it. You know, when it starts talking about how the ship works or the blasters or anything like that, it'll have to have some kind of plot. It'll have to be a plot device, but it shouldn't be the all in all about what it is, because it's a fantasy and it has fantastical things. I mean, literally, the movie, they're fighting in space and you hear sound in space. That's also part of the fantasy of it, because if you were doing a real life science fiction space movie, you wouldn't have sound in space. So it's also the fantasy part about it, that there's sound in space and there's all kinds of things. So those are the fantasy, those are the action parts. Now the adventure part is obviously the adventure. There's peril, there's danger for the heroes and even the villains, to show how much they want to reach their goal for the villains and the heroes. There's just adventure, and there's twists and turns, and there's revelations, and there's shocking moments. It's an adventure. So a lot of this is lacking from Andor. A lot of this is just lacking from Andor. Andor, how much action does it have? It has a couple episodes where like it just brings about action. I wouldn't even count the last episode as very action oriented. It's just a mob rushing into the Empire and getting themselves killed, and it wasn't very exciting to see. That was very stupid of the writers to do that. Why would they have citizens go after the Empire that is stronger, more armed, more equipped, even if they beat them in that battle in the last episode, which they wouldn't, but let's say they beat them, another armada of Imperials would arrive and kill a lot of them, if not imprison them and put them in that prison that Andor was at, and they would not have a way out. So some fans have said, oh, it just shows how much they're willing to fight. Well, if they're willing to fight, if they're so much willing to fight, then they're willing to plan. They're willing to have patience. They're willing to strategize, and they're willing to get weapons. If they're really willing to do that, then they're willing to do all of that and plan it well. But it's just a lot of fans don't think this through. They just spew out things, and it just kind of grows my suspicion that a lot of these fans are working for Disney as well. Online, people that just kind of come to your comment section or go to like Reddit boards and things like that. I'm pretty sure a lot of those people work for Disney. Like the action in the prison escape scene actually was pretty plausible. It was pretty good. And then the Aldani stuff, it was okay. They just had an escape, and you saw some really pretty amazing CGI stuff over the skies of Aldani, and that was it. And then the episode 3, the battle on Ferrex with the Corporal Cops, that was okay too. There wasn't a lot of highlights there. I think the best action that we got in this series was the prison escape sequence in episode 10. Now the fantasy elements, this series does not want to have any fantasy elements. There was literally no aliens in the prison. There's rarely any there's no hologram messages happening with anybody. There's a lot of characters communicating, but what the writers want to do is they want to waste time. They want to have them meet in person, and they're walking, or they're doing all this awkward kind of staring at each other, and then they meet up and they give a little bit of information, and then the scene ends, and what a waste of time. And when they could just, the writers can have fun. Oh, let's have her send a hologram message to her, and it's gonna look all cool. Like, you want to see that cool visual stuff because this is Star Wars. Fantasy elements, they don't really care about, nobody ever mentions the Force. Nobody on Ferrix says, you know, we need to trust in the Force, everything's gonna be okay. You know, the Jedi have been around for a millennium. I'm pretty sure a lot of people on a lot of systems in the galaxy know about the Jedi or have heard of them. And even more than the Jedi, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard about the Force. Now, you're gonna argue, well, Luke Skywalker didn't know about the Force in A New Hope. Yes, that's true. And that also has a lot to do with his uncle and aunt, who didn't want him to learn anything about the Jedi or the Force to protect him. If you go to Rogue One, you have like Sherrod Imwe. He knew about the Force. He was obviously a protector of anything related to the Jedi or the Force. And there's a lot of people in the galaxy that are pretty sure know about the Force and the Jedi. So it would have been nice to have had that. It would have been nice to have had a character say, I wish we had a Jedi about now, you know, because this we need a lot of help, or I wish, you know, let's trust in the Force, or something like that. It could even just be a back and forth between two characters, like, we should trust in the Force. Oh, the Force, you're like, I don't believe in that. At least it's acknowledged, you know. So we don't have a lot of fantasy elements. There's not a lot of aliens. The worlds look, you know, in the original trilogy, we had a snow planet, a desert planet, and a forest planet. But somehow, I don't know how, the way it's shot, the way that it's presented on those original movies, it feels alien. It feels, in the forest planet, you have the Ewoks living in the trees in these fantastical environments, fantastical homes that they built. So it feels alien. On Hoth, on the snow planet, you have these walkers, these Imperial walkers, and this rebel base inside these caves and everything like that. So it all feels alien. You know, you have these tauntauns running across the snow. So it all feels alien because of what surrounds it. And then on Tatooine, the desert planet, you have all these aliens, all these spaceports, and Tusken Raiders and Jawas and everything like that. So it all feels alien. So you have the Sarlacc pit and Return of the Jedi. It all feels alien. In this one, you have like an Aldani, you have Andor and his teams kind of, well, you know, trekking like if it's Lord of the Rings on these mountains, on these mountain ranges, and it just like, that's just Earth. It doesn't look very alien, you know. Then you go to that scene where he's on this kind of like Miami beach type of planet, a resort, and it just doesn't, you see some aliens there, but it just doesn't feel like Star Wars, because you have a lot of concrete there, a lot of concrete designs, and then a lot of it doesn't really feel like Star Wars. It's just something about it that doesn't feel fantasy like. They're trying to make it look earthly. The problem with them is they're trying to make it look earthly. They're trying to make this alien world look like Earth, and I just think that they fail at making you feel like you're in Star Wars. The scene, the first episode where he's walking in the rain, it doesn't feel like a Star Wars planet. It feels like he's on Blade Runner or something like that. It's a show or a movie, one of the Blade Runner movies, and it just doesn't feel like Star Wars. And then Ferrix is just weird because Ferrix, you don't have a lot of aliens on there. You don't have a lot of Star Wars iconography there. Yes, the Empire shows up, but what it really looks like just another town on Tatooine. It looks like Mos Eisley with a different tint, with a different color. So it's not very original. And the costumes are really bad on a lot of the characters on Ferrix. It just doesn't feel like, I think there was a kid there. There was a costume with the kid there that he had a hoodie. Like, what are you doing? And then a lot of people made fun of Star Wars Theory because he said that there were bricks there, and these bricks were so obviously not very Star Warsy, and I agree with him. The set design in this movie was really bad. The cinematography might have been nice in some parts, but the set design was just bad. It was just bad. It did not feel like Star Wars. And just come at me too for saying that, because I know you went hard on Theory for saying that, and it was really ridiculous in my opinion. But yes, the fantasy elements, the action elements, and then there's the adventure side. There's not a lot of adventure going on here. There is some moments of peril with like Andor on Aldani and in the prison, and the prison escape. I think that's why episode 10 is the best one, but everything else is just really, really bad. The adventure side didn't really come off too strongly in this, and Tony Gurro said in season 2 he wants to have more adventure and everything like that. Well, I hope season 2 is a banger and it's really like 10 times better than season 1, because if it's 10 times better and it's more about the rebellion and how they start, then I can completely ignore Andor, pretend it never happened, not count it as canon, because I really don't count a lot of Disney Star Wars as canon, so it'll be just easy enough to count this as not canon. And then yes, if it's really good, if season 2 is really good, I can say, you know what, this is pretty good start to the rebellion. This looks like I can put it right next to a little backstory for the original trilogy. But that's a really big thing to say, because it's really hard to do anything that connects to those original movies, and Disney has not been able to do it really that well. I think the only thing they come close to is bringing back Luke Skywalker a little bit post Return of the Jedi in The Mandalorian. That's the closest they've come to actually connecting in a good way to the original movies. So the adventure, the action, and the fantasy parts of Andor are lacking. And a lot of the defenders, the troll defenders, because there's people that like Andor and they can like it and that's fine, and they don't judge anybody else. They respect others' opinions if they don't like it. But the ones that attack the haters, the people that don't like the show, are the problem. This is why I think a lot of them work for Disney, or Disney shows, are Star Wars Disney fans that like anything with the name Star Wars on it and the little Disney logo on the bottom with it. Those are the people that really are the ones that are the problem, and that create this issue that they think that the people that don't like it are not sophisticated enough to like this dramatic version of Star Wars, which is really badly written. It tricked fans into thinking it was going to be an action spy thriller, and it wasn't. It was definitely far from anything like Jason Bourne. And note, Tony Gilroy did not make Jason Bourne successful. The Jason Bourne movies are based off of novels. The novelists helped make those movies successful. Matt Damon helped make those movies successful. I'm sure he had input in the script. And then also the directors of those movies, more than Tony Gilroy, made those movies successful. Not Tony Gilroy. He just adapted those novels, and I'm sure the novelist, the director, and Matt Damon had a lot of input in the adaptation of those novels. So don't think that Tony Gilroy is the best thing ever because he created or was part of the making Jason Bourne movies great. He directed the fourth one, which is the worst one, which had didn't have Matt Damon's character in it, and it was the worst one. So just remember that. And so there was bad marketing in the making of this show, and so it wasn't action at all. If it had been a good drama, a good action drama with some action in it, then I think I would have been acceptable about it a little bit more, but it wasn't. A good example of a good story, Star Wars story, that could be a drama one day as a Disney Plus show would probably be something like the early days of Palpatine, when he's training to be a Sith apprentice. And obviously there wouldn't be a lot of like battles or wars or probably even fighting with opponents, because he would be training, he would be learning, basically almost an adaptation of the Darth Plagueis novel. And it would just be a lot of drama, and it would be very intriguing, and we would learn all about how the Sith work and the rule of two, and maybe we could have some Jedi characters in there that maybe find out a little bit too much about Palpatine and Darth Plagueis, and then they get killed because they almost discover their plans. But this would be something at the end, like a climatic fight battle between these Jedi and Palpatine, and this would be like a test for Palpatine to really show his allegiance to Darth Plagueis. That would be a good drama. Another good drama would have been what Kenobi wasn't and what it could have been, and it would have been almost an adaptation of the Kenobi novel from the ODU, and it would be just Kenobi on Tatooine. He's dealing with conflicts between the Tusken Raiders and the Tatooine moisture farmers, and looking after Luke. And in the process, he's learning about the Force. This show would be all about the Force, and we would have like this Western type of story, Western type of genre story, with the Tusken Raiders and the the moisture farmers, and that's where some of the action would happen. But it would be primarily a drama about Obi-Wan's training, and that's what Kenobi should have been. It should have been a show about Obi-Wan's training so that he can get the ability to become a Force ghost. That's what Kenobi should have been. So in this drama show, Kenobi would just be talking to Qui-Gon a lot. Qui-Gon would be in this show a lot. He would also be talking to Yoda a lot, the way we saw Ezra talking to Yoda in that temple in Star Wars Rebels. But obviously Obi-Wan would have a closer connection to Yoda, so Yoda would be able to appear to Obi-Wan a little bit more better. And then we could even take it a little bit further, where Obi-Wan probably visits that world that's very strong in the Force that Yoda went in the Clone Wars Lost missions, where he was training with the wills of the Force. And Obi-Wan could go to that planet and he could face his own darkness, and he could see some light about Anakin. And in that moment, when he faces his own darkness, his version of a dark Obi-Wan, he can realize that it wasn't his fault that Anakin fell to the dark side. It was Anakin's fault. In that moment, he could also have an apparition with Anakin or Darth Vader, where he could have a fight with a visual apparition of Darth Vader, and that could be the duel that Lucasfilm wanted to have, that was hyping up for fans. That could be the rematch that they were hyping up. This is the type of drama and story that we wanted as Star Wars fans, a lot of Star Wars fans. This is the type of story that this character and this franchise deserve. And also in the process, maybe Obi-Wan could go and visit Yoda to Dagobah and just continue his training. Obviously, he is looking after Luke, but he needs to do this training. And Yoda would advise him, look, you need to do this training. I will through the Force look after Luke. And maybe Obi-Wan could also contact Bail Organa and say, look, I have to do this training with Yoda. It's very important. Can you please send somebody, or can you yourself look after Luke for a few days? Simple. These characters are loyal to each other because they are the hope in the future against the Empire. So obviously they have to be able to work together. So these are good examples. These are two good examples of good possible drama stories. Obviously, they can't go back and do Kenobi the way I mentioned it here, because they already did it in their version and it was really, really bad. With the Palpatine one, they can actually do that. They can adapt the Darth Plagueis book into a Disney Star Wars show, and it would be mostly drama, and they get a good writer, someone that has some experience in writing novels and things like that, and write this story for TV. But the Kenobi story should have been that. And these are good examples of dramas. And Andor is far from anything like this, or how good any of this could be. And Andor thinks it's better than even Star Wars itself, the Star Wars franchise, in that it subtracts a lot of the action, a lot of the adventure, the fun, because that's very, very essential to Star Wars, the fun. And it subtracts a lot of the fantasy elements. And another point is that movies in general, a lot of movie genres are all about fun, having fun at the movies. You know, comedies, horror movies, action, adventure movies, fantasy movies, sci-fi movies. It's just really fun to watch movies in general. And the reason why I bring up movies a lot, and I know Andor is a TV show and it's trying to be a episodic TV show or whatever it was, but it's because at the end of the day, Star Wars works better as feature films, and Star Wars became popular as movies, and I feel that Star Wars works better as movies. So if any TV show, Star Wars TV show, should get any example of how to be a good Star Wars story on the TV, it should be getting inspiration from the movies. That's just why I mention a lot of movies. I don't watch as much TV show as other people. I'm more of a movie guy. I definitely have a lot of favorite TV shows, and I will have TV show stuff on this channel as well in the future. But my point is here that Andor is not very fun to watch. It's definitely not going to be rewatchable. And for me and for a lot of people, it's not something that I even want to remember or want to know that is canon for Star Wars in any way. So Star Wars has to be fun. That's one of my extra points here in the genre of this franchise. It has to be fun. Even something like Revenge of the Sith is fun. Let me give you a quick examples of why Revenge of the Sith, a very tragic story, a story that hits you hard on all the emotional beats, and it's hard to watch a lot of things, is also fun. So Act 1 is very fun. We have all of Act 1 with that whole space battle, Obi-Wan and Anakin working together to capture Count Dooku and General Grievous and saving Palpatine. And you have R2-D2 working with him. It's a lot of fun. That whole Act 1 is fun. Act 2 is, I'm just looking at my notes here on my phone. Act 2 is engrossing and full of drama, stakes, action, and twists and turns. That's where things get more the conflict grows, You have a lot more things like that. All that in turn is fun to watch. It's just entertaining. Now you go to Act 3. Act 3 is shocking, heartbreaking, engrossing, full of tension, and it's emotional, and it's action filled. And all of that is entertaining or fun to watch. Fun equals entertaining. So it's all entertaining, and hardly any of what I just said here describe Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, as hardly any of that is in Andor. And it's you really have to wonder where all the troll defenders, because if you genuinely like the show for whatever it is trying to be, but you're kind of quiet about it, you don't start trying to prove points to people that don't like the show, and you're trying to argue with people, fair enough. But for the troll defenders that keep on replying to you on your comment sections, online, on social boards, they keep trying to make a point that it's good and that we're dumb, we're not sophisticated enough to like it, and we're the ones that are the problem, then that's complete BS. And the show literally has clear problems in that it lacks Star Wars, to put it simply, and it lacks a good script, it lacks a good, interesting character, it lacks a lot of things. And when you're lacking a lot of things in a script, in a show that is supposed to be something, and it's supposed to be something that fans and people expect, then it's a bad show because it lacks a lot of good things that would make it a good show. So that's what Andor is. It just is not. It's basically saying F you Star Wars, F you and your genre and everything like that. I don't want to be like you. I want to do this, but they did it badly. So that's going to be my video here, and I'm going to delve more into the issues of Andor with my rewrite video. And basically, Andor just didn't respect Star Wars. That's all. The root of the problem is Tony Gilroy. And according to him, according to what he has said to the media, that he didn't like Star Wars, or he doesn't like Star Wars, and he just doesn't appreciate it as much as somebody like, for example, Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni or other filmmakers that have come, or even back to the original trilogy with Aaron Kershner and Richard Marquand. They appreciated this world that George Lucas created. They recognized that this was a fantasy world. This was set in space, but it was fantasy. They respected the fantasy elements. They respected the action elements. They respected the comedy bits, the dramatic moments in the story. And they really did their best to bring all of that about in a genuine way. They respected the fantasy elements very much. And so, yes, that's going to be my video. I will go delve more further into Andor in my Andor rewrite video. But that's going to be basically it. Andor just doesn't care about Star Wars, doesn't care about the genre elements in Star Wars. It wants to do its own thing. Tony Gilroy and his show, they think they're too good for Star Wars or something, and it's just nonsense BS. I think that he should just take his ideas of a fantasy sci-fi show to another franchise or create his own thing and leave Star Wars alone. Star Wars needs to be fun, and needs to stick to mostly what makes it successful is genre elements in the franchise, which is action, adventure, fantasy. If you want to do a good drama, I already gave two good examples of possible future drama shows. I know the Kenobi one probably doesn't have a chance to be made, but hey, they could retcon it. They can make that into a book or something. But I gave two possible options of good Star Wars dramas that they can make, which is the early Palpatine days, adapt the Darth Plagueis book, and the Kenobi story on Tatooine and him learning about the Force more to become a Force ghost. And there are ideas there to make good Star Wars dramas, but Disney and Lucasfilm are not really paying attention. They don't know how to do it. I'm pretty sure they just don't know how to. They wouldn't know how to make a good Star Wars drama, good quality written Star Wars drama. So at least just stick to what makes Star Wars successful, but do it well, write it well, get good writers. Because we need that now. Star Wars fans, the Star Wars franchise needs good, exciting Star Wars stories. This is why I think The Mandalorian and Mandalorian Season 3 comes out next year, I think in February. The Mandalorian is the closest thing we got to like George Lucas Star Wars because it keeps it fun. It does it well. There's a lot of action. It does it well. It's not just fluff. There's good drama in there. It does it well. There's even comedy bits. It does it well for the most part. Look at, Grogu, Baby Yoda. If it had not done it well with him, then it wouldn't have been as successful. So it does a lot of things well with the action, the drama, even the comedy bits, and even the fantasy elements. There's a lot of fantasy elements in The Mandalorian. There's a lot of aliens. There's a lot of Star Wars iconography there. It has fun with Star Wars. The Mandalorian has fun with the Star Wars universe, with the Star Wars world. Andor seems to say, I don't want to do anything Star Wars. I just want to have a prison storyline with no aliens in it. I don't want to do a lot of that. Andor just doesn't want to do Star Wars. It doesn't want to. In the case of Mandalorian, it has fun with the Star Wars universe. George Lucas had fun in the prequels with the Star Wars universe. Just look at them; they're amazing. He had fun in the original trilogy creating this world, and he stuck with it all the way into Return of the Jedi. So we want to see Star Wars content that has fun with the Star Wars universe. We don't want to see Star Wars content that's trying to be more earthly, more like other shows, hyper realistic. We don't need Star Wars shows that are hyper realistic or any of that. We want them to have a Star Wars realism. We want it to be fun and exciting in the visual effects, in the story, in the drama, in the characters, and all of that. Andor didn't do any of that. So those are my thoughts on how Andor just doesn't respect the Star Wars or the genre that it is coming from with Star Wars. And that's just what I think. And I hope that season 2 with Tony Gilroy, the way what he said about season 2, I hope season 2 just makes it better and has more fun and exciting, but all of that well-told stories in it. So that's gonna be the video. Hit that like button if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Stay tuned to more Star Wars content here and more movie content. This is gonna be your channel for movies and Star Wars. So in the meantime, I will see you guys next time, and may the Force be with you.